Hey, I'm Mr. Harvey, and this is GTT Flight and Space. Okay, this is the third step of our project called Intro to Flight. One of the things I really like about this step is that students are having to do a lot of graphing and comparing and contrast. So let's jump into what they're doing and how I do it. All right, so what I'm doing is students are going to be designing and graphing 3 different types of paper airplanes. I make them do a bright colored cardstock. I choose the bright color, A, it's cheaper, and B, I can do a color per class period so that the planes don't get confused. So like if my second period is green, my third period will do purple or whatever, right? And then I make them do a piece of construction paper. It's a different kind of consistency. They're designing, building that. And then on the third day, they're going to use a plain piece of printer paper. They're going to design and make that one. Now, what they're doing is they're not just making airplanes and throwing them for flight. What they're going to do, and this is actually really important, is they are going to stand at 5 different areas that are different distances away from a circle or a landing zone. And what they're going to do is they're going to stand at those places and they're going to throw their plane 2 to 3 times, and they're going to have to graph how far away they are from the landing zone. This is important because I think sometimes students can get in the room, so they're just chucking or they're throwing things everywhere, and then it's not even like you're not getting a goal or a real purpose out of it. They're just throwing airplanes. So I do a couple of things. Number one is I make them only throw planes one direction. It's from the lines to the landing zone. Number two, because where my class is set up, I don't allow anybody to throw planes in my class. They have to do it out in the testing area, which is just right outside my door. And then the third thing is that while one person throws, one person has to graph. And this does something kind of neat for me is if I see kids out there and they're just holding planes or they're walking around, I then can ask follow-up questions that instead of just yelling at kids or whatever, I can go, hey, where's your investigate the topic sheet you're graphing on? Oh, yeah, I'm struggling to figure okay, we're not using that kind of paper today. That's not what we're testing or graphing. Did you not finish yesterday? What? Oh, yeah, I grabbed the wrong plane. Okay. And then number 3, I can look at them and go, hey, it looks like you're standing at the same place a lot. Are you going for the target or are you just throwing a plane? And it creates good questions for me to shift behavior and get everybody on the right track. Okay, so now it takes about 3 days, sometimes about 2.5. I've had students design, build, and test those 3 airplanes. Then what I have them do is I have a really cool sheet where they compare and contrast the 3 planes for accuracy. Which one goes the furthest, which one was the most accurate in the landing zone, which one did better from each of the feet marks. And it makes them think about it because then what I'm going to do is then they're going to design and build a launcher for their best airplane using cardboard and rubber bands. So I call it an elastic energy launcher. So now they're kind of thinking through all that. They're designing and building it. And then we take about 3 days to build those, and then we will do them together. I do a couple of things. Number one, I'll have them, they have to graph and all that stuff, but then I'll make them launch go at least 10 feet. So that's a pretty minimum requirement for where we're at. And then I'll always end with kind of a fun thing where I reward them with either candy. We have something called Fisher feathers where they can spend it for candy, whatever. And then they will do is they will launch the furthest. And it's just kind of fun, right? Go for broke. Even if it breaks, you went all in, and the kids love it because they're going all in. But this is a great project because I'm reinforcing a ton of skills. Are you cutting again? Are you measuring properly? Are you using the hot glue properly? Are you graphing? What a great skill for middle schoolers and even early high school to have. Do you understand how to bar graph? Do you understand how to read it? Okay, so here's what I would say and even recommend is set it up well so that students are set up for success. Number 2 is be really specific in your directions on how they're supposed to be throwing and graphing the airplanes. And number 3, do not be afraid to stop what they're doing to teach a skill. Often I will notice after 1 day or 2 days, I'm like, man, these kids aren't understanding bar graphs. Okay, I'll stop. I always say the first 10 minutes of class is mine anyway, and we'll work on some bar graphing and that skill and reading it. And that's okay. Okay, so as always, if this was super helpful for you and you've enjoyed this project, I'd love for you to tag me in your videos, man. Let me see what you're doing. Let's support each other. If you're using the Project Lead the Way stuff, if you're using some of the tips and tricks I've given you, I'd love to see it. If you have questions or concerns, or maybe you just want to even talk about like, hey, how about you set yours up in your class? Dude, shoot me an email. We'll set up a Google Meet, we'll do a Zoom, whatever. I'd love to make sure that I can help you just put a fresh set of eyes on what you're doing. But I'm Mr. Harvey. This is GTT, Light and Space.